the 08, I built my Extreme Beast computer using the phantom casing. Using 8 gigabytes of RAM, Core 2 9450 processor. DX48BT2 motherboard, which was not overclock friendly. Now 2016 is here. I am planning to squeeze out at least 2 more years from that build. Do some activities. I was running out of memory. Since the board will not support more than 8 gigabytes of RAM, I opted to upgrade the system temporarily. Therefore, I picked up the Gigabyte gaming motherboard. And 64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. Satisfy my needs until I do a full upgrade. Since this is only a partial upgrade, I will be reutilizing my water pump. Now you'll remember my Eco water pump from my Intel 1450 processor. I'm going to install my new Gigabyte board. 10 screws to the board. Therefore, I will be in one of the standoffs. Please note that this procedure for any yes, you may upgrade or update your pre-built system. This is going to be a system you want yourself. To open your case and verify the type of motherboard that it has. Not all cases support all sizes of motherboards, and that's one reason you need to double check. The case that I have, it will accommodate micro ATX, standard and ATX motherboard. Processor. When I originally installed the radiator, I had planned on a push-pull system. However, I didn't have long enough screws, therefore I just had a push fan towards the radiator. I have recently acquired a Thermaltake Slim case fans, which are also used for radiators, and I will be utilizing the push-pull system this time, as both fans together are slightly larger than one of the standard size case fans. This film is done in real time, and I have edited out where autofocus did not maintain focus. This recording will last in its entirety slightly over an hour. More screw. case fans are not threaded. However, the screws you use to attach a case fan to your case is designed to thread the fan hose as you apply the screw. Here I am removing my pull radiator fan, and when I reinsert it later on, it will be a push-pull. Regardless of how clean your environment is, computers seem to collect dust mainly because of your airflow intake fans. My current setup has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fans. Yes. And 3. I'm counting 2 on.
It's time to change that baby
Yeah,
out,
it is.
isn't it?
This is a smoke-free house. But it's not a dust-free household, unfortunately. For regular maintenance, I try cleaning out the system periodically about once a month, just to reduce any buildup, as a layer of dust can cause your components to heat up slightly higher. The dust itself acts like a thermal blanket. I found a natural hair paintbrush, about 1 inch. It's good for dusting off your motherboard without creating any static. You do want to be sure that it's a natural hair brush and not some synthetic brush, as when you're brushing around, you may build up static and damage your components. Here I'm removing my MSI GeForce GTX 9600. This is supposed to be an overclocking graphics card. Of course, I was not taking full functionality of the board with this motherboard, as the PCI Express ports are only 2x. In order to have SATA 3 ports on this particular system, I had to add an expansion card, which provided me also with 2 USB 3.0 ports. Although it is not needed on the new motherboard, I will go ahead and utilize the expansion port card with extra status. Unfortunately, the Roswell modular power supply, 1000 watts, did not sport cabling that didn't show the rainbow colors of the wiring. Upon installing the new motherboard, I will move the power cable over to the closest slot and pass through, so less amount of the multicolor wiring will display. I will also remove the SATA cables and use the 4 SATA cables that came with the motherboard after I cabled them together in pairs. 1 pair for the drives and the secondary pair for the optical drives. I had bought some adapter cards for my DVD drives, as they are IDE interface, and the adapter boards supposedly support it in a bi-directional fashion, IDE to SATA or SATA to IDE, giving you the option of connecting directly to the motherboard and then cable from it to the drive, or the board connected directly to the optical drive and then the cable to the motherboard's SATA port. Unfortunately, no configuration worked for me. Even after applying a direct source from the power supply to the adapter boards, my optical drives would receive power, however they would not be recognized on the system. Fortunately enough, the company I purchased it from did accept the boards back with a full courteous refund, and they did pick up the return shipping. I am now removing the screws to the motherboard. As I stated earlier, this particular board sports 10 screws. Therefore, I will have to remove a standoff. I have already checked the new motherboard by Gigabyte, and I was going to leave the standoff just for the additional support. However, there are connections on the back of the board there, and I do not want to cause a short. Updating your computer to new hardware is actually a simple task, as long as you adhere to some basic principles. As you can see, I am not grounded here. However, the workbench I'm on is all metal, so I have grounded myself. Making sure that you have the proper size motherboard for your case is key. Boards did not work for me converting IDE to SATA or SATA to IDE. I will be forced now to purchase new optical drives that are SATA compliant. Since I will be doing the upgrade, I will go ahead and purchase Blu-ray optical drives. I always buy my optical drives in pairs. On currently is by LG. All of my optical drives for many years have been LG, and I have been satisfied with those. They have been very reliable, and when firmware updates were required, that procedure of upgrading the firmware was fast and efficient. We're almost at the last of the screws to remove the motherboard. If you check out one of my other videos, you'll see that the 3-fan combination there on the north bridge for cooling is quite filthy from gathering dust and particles from the air. I did a video on that to show you how I clean my fans when I remove them from the case, to restore them to almost like new performance and appearance. Now I'm removing carefully the motherboard, getting some of the cables out of the way. Typically, fans should probably be replaced about every 4 years. I generally just replace mine once I'm ready to do a new build or an upgrade. I do occasionally remove the fans and clean them. As you can check out that video, how to properly clean your fans. Wiping up some excess dust here that's gathered underneath. Treasure. I really enjoy futuristic look. And I do have the original version, not one of the more recent versions of this case, which sports a beautiful stormtrooper appearance. After removing this filter from the system, I'll give it a good cleaning and then reinstall. Although I spend a little time on cable management with my system, my case does not have a clear side to it. Therefore, I really don't have to invest as much time in cable management. I do so anyway. It just makes for a nicer appearance when you're inside the case working on it. It's neater. It actually helps your airflow in the system. You can see just below, before the camera goes out of focus again, that the Roswell power supply is an 80 plus at 1,000 watts. I have never come close to even using that much wattage. It has been very stable and reliable. I would recommend it. I like the modular design. I will be removing some cables from the power supply to reduce cable clutter. There goes the autofocus again. I have removed some drives already from the case. The two drives, hard drives that you see there, are both 2 terabyte hard drives. Samsung EVO. I think that was the 850. It's a 500 gigabyte SSD drive. I have 2 4 terabyte drives that will go back into the system that host all of my movie collection and music collections. I don't know where my head was at while I was doing this. I should have actually removed all the cabling, at least to the rear of the case, while I was doing the upgrade. You will see the standoff closest to the cutout where the CPU resides. I will be removing that post, however, turns out it was the incorrect one. I had to replace that and remove the next one that you see by it. All of the fans in the case have been upgraded except for the 2 large fans. I'm looking around currently for the one that you see at the top, and then I'll get a dual set and place in the other slot as well. I really enjoyed the water cooler for the Intel Q9450 processor, as even at peak loads, I never got over 50 to 60 Celsius. And at ambient temperatures, they usually reside at somewhere around 36 degrees Celsius. system up and running, I have noticed that around 34 degrees Celsius, the current i7 6700K processor runs at idle. Manufacturers always include these stickers so you can show what's inside your case. However, I do not like stickers on the outside of my case. Therefore, I just keep them with the extra cabling and stuff. Although this is an attractive motherboard by Gigabyte in white and red, I would have preferred it white and black. Or white and blue would even be even better, since my hardware is black and white with blue lighting. To install the motherboard. However, I still have to remove the standoff prior to doing so. Myself, I prefer to install the motherboard, followed by the processor, then the memory. Some individuals prefer to install the processor while the motherboard is outside the case, and also install the memory at that time. Whether you do install the motherboard with the processor and memory already attached into the case, or you install the motherboard and then install the processor and memory, there's no real difference. It just may be easier for some to install the processor, especially since it is a delicate instrument, while the motherboard is outside the case. Or the reason as of yet. However, the software to control the audio out on the motherboard for some reason continues to revert back to headset mode rather than remaining at the speaker selection. It should be as simple as a new driver or software update. Installing the face backplate for the motherboard ports. It is LED lit, and the cable you see has a dedicated connector on the motherboard. The LEDs are red, green, and blue, therefore you can select pretty much any color to your liking. I selected blue, and rather than having steady or flash, I have it on breathing, so it fades in and out softly. You may not feel that you need an LED faceplate, however that does come in adding additional cablings to your computer. especially for newbies to PC building, is to be sure to only hand tighten your screws. You do not want to over tighten screws on any part of your computer system. Over tightening, you run the risk of cracking your motherboard, breaking traces. Just remember, only thumb tight, hand tight. Do not over tighten your screws. Notice here that all connectors are keyed. They will only insert in one direction. After turning it around, you'll so you don't have to worry too much about installing your cables incorrectly. They are all keyed. They will only fit in one way. You will not get a square peg into a round hole. cabling with this power supply is sheathed. However, it does not go all the way to the connector, as seen here. A little additional lighting to ensure that I have everything in place. Although it's slightly out of the camera's view, I am now plugging in the back plate, base plate, for the LEDs to operate. Typically, most motherboards, the memory slots have those connectors on each end that you have to open up prior to installing your memory. However, even in earlier times, connectors such as this, where they only have to be unlocked at one end, were around. When inserting the memory, apply equal force to both ends until you hear them click into place. You don't want to add too much force, as you don't want to damage. Line your modules up with the slots on each end and then press into place. The connectors on the end you will hear click to ensure that your memory is locked. For this build, I chose the Kingston HyperX Drury, clocked at 2400. I have no intentions at present to overclock this system. However, should I decide to at a later date, I have the ability to do so. Each of the memory modules is 16 gigabytes for a total of 64 gigabytes. To text me and asked whoever uses 64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and I told him I would. And one of the projects I was working on the other day, I actually used almost 50 of that. Ready to install the i7 processor by it. As you'll see, there's a little golden arrow on one corner of the processor, matching that with the arrow corner on the motherboard. Drop it into place. I always remove the cover, but I believe that it will pop off if you leave it on there as you're lowering it. Be sure that the little slot there fits under the screw as you lower the lever. There you go, hold the top of the processor, there you go. And then slide back under. Everything's locked in place. That looks a little off to me, so I think I'll reposition that. This is my Eco Coolant water pump system. I was going to purchase a new one with the dual radiators, but I've opted to go ahead and just replace this one. As I mentioned earlier, I bought these new fans to do a push-pull design, as both fans together are just slightly larger than one. Thermaltake slim fans with the blue corners. The blue corners tend to be some type of silicone type plastic, or maybe solid silicone. I believe it's a combination of silicone and plastic. It's supposed to help reduce vibration. Because I need to screw that to the case and to the radiator. On the pull fan, I had to make a slit on each of the corners in order to get the screw in. It should not affect any of the vibration properties. First corner I did, I made a slot, which I found out I didn't need to do a slot, just making a single slit to the center where the hole is with a utility knife was more than sufficient. Then as you work the screw in, it just pops into place, and then you just screw it on in. The cable running from the fans to the case, I put it the lower right hand corner just to hide the cables mostly. That was the only specific reason for placing them at the lower right hand corner, was so that the cable management would be far easier. Very little of the cable actually shows, about an inch or less, maybe a little bit more than an inch actually shows when you're looking inside the case. On the pump itself, on the copper plate, I removed all of the old thermal paste and then cleaned it with isopropyl alcohol thoroughly. Then took a dry cloth just to make sure there was no residue whatsoever left behind. Then using a low-tack masking tape, I marked off the area in which I did not need thermal paste. And then I used Arctic Silver 5. I put a sufficient amount right in the center on the copper plate, and then using an old credit card, I swiped from the corners to the following corners until I had a nice, even, thin coat. The thermal paste is about the thickness of the actual masking tape. You will not see this in this video, as my battery died on me at the time. So I'm just explaining what I did. Once the thermal paste was spread evenly to a thickness of the masking tape, I removed the masking tape and then applied the water pump to the processor, tightening the screws. My i7 core processor remains at idle 34 to 36 degrees Celsius. I have yet to run temps when the processor is running at max, because with the Arctic Silver 5 I'm still breaking in the thermal paste, and we'll wait till it's fully seated before I do any heavy loads that are taxing to the processor. However, the Eco Coolant is doing a great job, because the ambient temperature at those readings in the room was 41 degrees Celsius. I would have preferred that these screws were black. However, these are the only screws that I had that would actually fit the radiator. And they come with little nuts, so I put the nuts in between, and that way if I have to remove the fans while it's still attached to the case, I won't have to worry about the screw dropping off somewhere into the computer case. The nut will hold it in place. It also provides a little bit of extra tightening. The fans do have 4 LEDs at each corner, so they do light up blue. There is a red version of this particular fan as well. I believe it actually comes in 3 colors: blue, black, and I'm thinking white, maybe. These are supposed to be hydraulic fans, so they spin rather freely. They are actually very quiet. I don't hear them running in the system. Actually, I hear some of my other fans running. It's the reason I've considered replacing the larger fans. And you see there where I made my slot into the corner. But as with the other ones, you can see as I improve upon it, you don't notice the slot as much. I actually made the first slot in the wrong corner. So a little bit of modding for the fans was done. Radiator to the case prior to installing the pump to the microprocessor. And in the old setup, you notice that the word Eco was parallel to the PCI Express 2X slots. With this setup, I have opted to put the wording vertically to match the memory modules. Therefore, twisting the tubing from the pump to the radiator in more of a helix pattern, which I find very attractive and does not interfere with the flow of water through the tubing. With the case hose so that I can thread the screw into the fan to secure the fan radiator and radiator push-pull system to the casing. mentioned earlier, these adapter boards did not function for me whatsoever. After using various techniques, attaching to different devices, different ports, powered from an existing cable and powered directly from the power supply, they did not provide bi-directional data interface for me. IDE to SATA nor SATA to IDE would function. Sadly, I spent too much time trying to get the little adapter boards to function for me. Perhaps if I had used them on an older system, they may have worked properly, but they did not work with this system whatsoever. The LED on the board did light up, so I know it was getting power. And actually had two SATA cable connectors. And I tried both of them and neither one of them seemed to work. I really wasted far too much time investing in hopes that they would function properly. I don't watch Blu-ray on my computer, so now that I'll be upgrading to Blu-ray, maybe I will. I don't own any Blu-ray disc at present, but now the Blu-ray disc can hold quad the amount of data. That may be something to look into. Now that everything is pretty much in place, it's just a matter of installing the graphics card and the adapter board and then doing a little bit of cable management. Okay, here we go. This is the inside of my cage before. This is my loose cable management inside my original Phantom case prior to installing the new SATA cables. Might need to put a little bit more light in here. But as you can see, it doesn't look too bad as it is, but a little bit more cleaned up and it'll look nicer. Currently I have 2 terabyte hard drives in here and one 500 gigabyte Samsung SSD. I left that cage open for a second SSD. Let me grab a flashlight here. There we go. My adapters I got to convert IDE to SATA don't seem to be working. I think that might be because I'm going to have to connect the power directly to the power supply. I'll let you know if that changes how it works or not, but here's what I'm going to clean up. I'm going to change those SATA cables out. I'm going to come through the closest cutout there, so less of the cable is showing. Okay, let me get it right here. I'll show you that back side of my case. See, the cable management is just a little loose, but overall, and here's where the mess comes in. Of course, this was just so I can get things up and going. I wish the SATA power cables were right angle also, but I have roughly an inch clearance in the back here, so should be able to close it with no problem. And see, there you go. It doesn't look too bad. Of course, this is where it all gets hidden. This is my AC adapter for my notebook computer in the way. Okay, there we go. Everything. They still look a little white after me cleaning them. I took them out and washed them, but they got a whiteness cast to them like dust. And it's in the back. It's not going to be that noticeable, I guess. I know they're clean. Okay, so here I go. And I've been doing my cable management. A nice clean look. I use twist ties instead of zip ties because I want them. I opted to use twist ties for my cable management rather than zip ties. As zip ties are more permanent, and by using the twist ties, I can remove the twist ties as needed to add or subtract extra cables on this end. And I decided to harness in pairs here. Straight. One set will be for the hard drives or SATA drives. Connector shorter, or I should say SSD drives, and then one set it will be for the hard drives, and the third set that will be pictured here shortly, that's done in black and white, will be for the optical drives. And then when I actually finish up my cable management, all three. Unfortunately, both of these weren't right angle. Twist tied. These would be the SATA cables for my optical drives. I went with a black and white twist tie to keep in keeping with the black and white colors of the cabs of the SATA cables. Well, I was able to remove several cables in addition to some cables. but it doesn't look too bad. As you can see, these here, when I put the back cover on, will press gently back into place so not to apply too much pressure. So that'll be nice. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. It's on the back side, no one's going to see it. Now on this side, let's put some light on the subject. You can see the loose power and SATA cables. I'm going to have to buy some new DVD drives, so I'm going to go with Blu-ray. I just went ahead and routed the cables so I can just plug and play when they arrive. Other than that, everything looks nice and clean inside. See? Not a great deal of cables. Of course, these will clear up a little bit when they're actually attached. Give it an even cleaner look. Otherwise, I'm happy. Good airflow. My new i7 6700K Intel processor at idle runs around 36 Celsius. Okay, that's pretty much it. Another look over here.